Would you like to feel more happy in your life? Or would you like to achieve more profit in your business? In this video, we are going to introduce you to a simple but practical principle. We have prepared a summary of the book 2080 for you. Because with the 2080 principle, we understand how we can feel more satisfied both in business and in our personal lives. Because 80% of our happiness comes from only 20% of the things we do. It's surprising, isn't it? In today's fast-paced world, many of us have to juggle long, impossible tasks every day. We may be determined to get everything done quickly, but when we get to the first task, we suddenly realize that there are two more important tasks that need to be done too. Companies in similar situations have defined multiple tasks for themselves, trying to enter multiple markets with a multitude of diverse products, and being like a clown in a circus to attract people's attention. In this chaotic situation, the most important thing is to know which task is most important and must be done first. That's why it's so important to understand a simple but powerful principle called the 80-20 rule. The imbalance between effort and results helps you make the most of your time. What's more, it's been proven to help companies achieve success in a new way, not by doing more, but by doing less. Ultimately, you can apply this principle to your personal life to increase your happiness and satisfaction. You just need to become familiar with the 80-20 mindset to help you stop wasting your time, energy, and money. The lack of balance between effort and reward can be seen in many situations. For example, many businesses find that only 20% of their products generate 80% of their profits. Similarly, 20% of drivers cause 80% of accidents. Most drivers drive carefully, while a small group of reckless drivers cause most accidents. This phenomenon is the 80-20 principle. Approximately 80% of the results come from 20% of the effort. Why is this ratio not balanced? Because each factor does not have the same impact on the final result. In fact, the cause of any event can be divided into two categories. 1. Minority groups, which have a large impact on the results. 2. Majority groups that have very little influence. This creates the 80-20th gap. It should be noted that the 80-20 rule is a simplification, and in reality this ratio can be different. For example, a 1997 study found that out of 300 films produced in a year, just 4 films, 1.3%, accounted for 80% of the sales. As you can see, examples of the 80-20th principle can be found in various situations, and understanding this rule can be very useful to us. People don't naturally think according to the 80-20 principle because our minds expect the world to be balanced. People would like the world to be balanced, but in reality, the natural state of the world is not. Take language, for example. Sir Isaac Pitman discovered that about 700 words make up 2/3 of everyday conversation. If we include their derivatives, this figure rises to 80%, that is, we speak with less than 1% of the words in the English language 80% of the time. Where does this imbalance come from? From small differences that lead to big differences. For example, if several goldfish of roughly equal size live in a pond, they will eventually grow into fish of different sizes. Since some fish are slightly larger than others, they have a small advantage. They manage to eat more food and grow faster than the smaller fish. This advantage makes them stronger and allows them to eat even more food. This cycle is constantly reinforced, eventually creating significant differences. Although this imbalance is natural, many people see it as unfair. A clear example is the unequal distribution of income and wealth. 20% of the population owns 80% of all wealth, and we call this social injustice. People assume that effort and reward should be of equal importance, and they see an imbalance between the two as unfair. But as the 80-20 principle shows us, not all work is equally rewarded. Let's first look at your professional life, because your current way of working is probably not efficient. Think about it for a moment. If you achieve 80% of your results with only 20% of the effort you put in, that means 80% of your efforts are inefficient. Just imagine for a moment, If you could reduce this wasted time, replace it with efficient efforts, and focus more on the same tasks you do in your productive 20% of time, how much could your life change? Now you know that the 80-20 rule is. Have you ever seen it in your personal life or business? Tell us about your experiences in the comments. Effective use of the 80-20 rule can help you increase your efficiency because you no longer waste time on useless tasks. You can start by examining and analyzing your work process to see which parts of your work are inefficient. For example, you may find that in the early days of a project, you are wasting time thinking too much. By understanding this rule, you can consciously avoid rumination. Now that you know what the 80-20 principle is, you're probably wondering how you can apply it to your business. There are a number of ways to do this, but perhaps the most important is to optimize and diversify your business products. To do this, you first need to discover which of your products are the most profitable. It's easy. If you rank your products by sales and profit, you'll probably find that the top products, even though they only account for 20% of your sales, account for 80% of your profits. For example, Richard Koch conducted a study of an electronics company and found that the top 3 products accounted for 19.9% of total sales, but they accounted for 52.6% of the company's total profits. Once you have identified the 80-20 situation in your company, the next step is to take the profitable products and make them better. Prioritize these products and focus your resources on producing and selling more of them. Richard Koch at that electronics company encouraged management to increase sales of their top products and told salespeople that their goal was to double sales of these 3 products. You can apply the 80-20 principle to every aspect of your business, from negotiation to targeted marketing. Now you know how you can apply the 80-20 principle to limit your product variety and increase profitability. But what about other areas of your business? Fortunately, the 80-20 principle is so versatile that you can use it in any field to increase your chances of success. For example, negotiation is an important part of any business, whether it's with customers, suppliers, or even shareholders. Usually, in a negotiation, the points to be discussed are prepared in advance, but sometimes there are too many. The 80-20 analysis shows that only a small number of requests are really important to your company, so you should focus on a limited but real number of them instead of trying to get all the negotiating points. Another example of using the 80-20 principle is in determining your marketing strategy. If about 20% of your customers generate 80% of your profits, you should focus on identifying them and convincing them to continue working with you. Once you have identified your customers, ensure their loyalty by providing them with excellent service. Also, target the same 20% when you are developing a new product or service. This will allow you to increase your market share by selling to fewer customers. For example, consider Nicholas Barsan, one of the top real estate agents in the United States, who earns more than $1 million a year in commissions on property sales. More than a third of that income comes from loyal clients who resell their homes, so his focus on keeping his best clients happy has been a profitable strategy. Improve your quality of life using the 80-20 principle. Most people define the quality of their lives by how happy they are. However, it is interesting that few of us try to change our lives to make ourselves happy and content. In fact, most people spend a lot of time doing things that make them unhappy. For example, many people have jobs that they hate. Most office workers spend their days in a cramped, dark room, effortlessly completing their tasks and waiting for the end of the day or week. How can you fix this problem? It's simple. You should try to identify and track the sources of happiness and unhappiness in your life before taking action to change it. Ask yourself which 20% of your activities provide 80% of your happiness, and vice versa. Once you've discovered the 80% of the times when you don't feel happy, it's time to take action. Reduce the time you spend doing those activities. For example, if your job is making you unhappy, you can think of ways to change it. You can look for another job, or redefine your current job, reduce your hours, etc. But whatever you do, you shouldn't continue working in a job that is making you miserable for the rest of your life. When you are able to let go of the things that make you unhappy, you will find that you have more time and energy to spend on the things that make you happy. For example, if you decide to spend less time at work, you will have more time to spend with your family and friends. Think about how 20% of the activities in your life produce 80% of your happiness, and try to find ways to spend more time doing them. If you do, you will have a happier life.